Hi, this is the first video on communication in our course on communication, research, and analysis for scientists and engineers. Today we're going to talk about audience and explanation, the two most critical concepts you need to understand if you want to get your ideas across to others successfully. Why are they so important? Because communication is not just about you. Even if it's only one way, it involves both you and the people you are trying to reach. Especially with technical material, it is really easy to bore and confuse people. Everyone has a million things to do, so unless they really have to pay attention to you, or unless you're interesting, they will just move on to the next report in the pile, or even start checking their email while you're still doing your presentation. In this video, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to communication as a process, how to define your audience, and how to use this information to help you write an explanation that your audience will actually understand. This is genuinely valuable for you as a technical person. Only if they understand you can they fund you, give you a job, buy your product, use your theory, or back your plan. Remember, this is only an introduction. When you're done with this video, you should go and read Chapter 5 of Explaining the Future so that you can get the full detail and examples. Don't worry, I'll give you more information about this at the end. Let's start with communication theory, an analytical tool that has made the telecommunications industry possible. It's also really useful for analyzing any kind of communication, even between people. Communication theory starts with a sender who wants to get a message to another person. Let's imagine the sender is using their phone. Their voice, and probably lots of other noise, is captured by the microphone in the phone and then encoded into a signal that can be transmitted through the telecommunications infrastructure. This is a noisy channel because other EM signals, reflections, and other types of interference will have an effect on how faithfully this transmission takes place. In electrical engineering, making sure the signal gets through intact is a big part of why communication theory is useful. The signal eventually reaches the other phone, which receives and decodes it back into voice. Hopefully, the other person can now hear and understand despite any background noise. We'll be talking more about encoding and decoding later, but it's really important to remember that if the receiver can't decode the signal, it doesn't matter whether the signal arrives intact or not. Also, don't worry that there seem to be two receivers at the moment, a person and a phone. We're going to simplify all of this shortly. Before I move on, however, there's one final step to mention: feedback. This is where the receiver sends some sort of brief information back to confirm that they received the signal intact. This could be the phone sending back data about the number of packets it received, or even the person just saying, "Sorry, I didn't hear that." Either way, this provides an opportunity to fix the problem. Okay. So I promised you I would simplify this. Let's do that now. First, we can cut out all that telecommunications infrastructure stuff. Electrical, electronic, and computer engineers need to understand how that works in detail, but you don't, at least not for this. We can also get rid of the phones because people can talk face to face. So now it's just two people talking in a noisy environment. We still have the basics: a message, a sender, a receiver, a noisy channel, and feedback. But there are no machines in the loop, and you can apply the model to all kinds of communication. The sender is you. You are the one trying to get a message across to explain your work or advance your agenda. What's the message? Essentially, it's that whoever is listening or reading should do something. What they need to do could be as material as giving you a few million for your startup company or an A on your paper. On the other hand, it could be as intangible as having them respect your work. Whatever it is, you'll have to persuade them using an argument, which I'll talk about more in the technical argument video. The signal is whatever you're going to deliver. Your message, as contained in a presentation, a poster, a journal, or a conference paper, a formal report, or even just an email. The audience, of course, is absolutely key. Who are they? What do they want? What do they know already? What do they want to know? What explanations can they understand? It's your job to craft the message so that they can receive and decode it into something meaningful. With art, it's fine to consider that what you create can just find its own audience. The fact that Van Gogh was long dead before he was appreciated doesn't diminish what he achieved. But technical communication is pragmatic. There is a job to be done here and now. You need to know, therefore, what you're trying to achieve before you start the process. This means you can't even start until you know who the document is for, what the audience wants out of it, and what you want the audience to take away from it. Thinking about this beforehand is critical to crafting what you're going to say. But that's just the beginning. Once we have our message, we need to make sure it's in a form the audience can understand. There are all sorts of things we have to consider to ensure what we say has meaning for our audience. At the most basic level, we can't expect our message to get through if the audience literally doesn't speak the same language. Unfortunately, every technical discipline seems to have its own dialect. To make a good explanation, you need to start by considering your audience's technical level and interests. Think about the technical terms, the jargon that they understand, and then make sure to define anything they need to know but don't. You also need to be brutal and cut out some technical detail that you think is interesting, but the audience either won't be able to follow or doesn't care about. In the book, I go into more detail about jargon and how to craft explanations. Don't forget about that noisy channel. People are distracted by all kinds of things, both internal and external. When you're sitting through a lecture or watching a video, you may be thinking about an argument with a friend, your impending lunch, or the message notification that just popped up on your screen. Reading a paper, your concentration can be interrupted by noise or a need for caffeine or the discomfort of sitting in the same position for too long. As the presenter or writer, you have to cut through all these distractions by creating a clear, engaging, easy-to-understand argument, avoiding technical words and descriptions unless the audience really needs to know what they are. To find out whether you're being interesting, engaging, and understood, you need to get feedback. In presentations, there are two important steps. For people who are relatively inexperienced speakers, it's important to do a practice run in front of a friendly audience, even if that's just one person. Whoever it is should have a technical level and background that is as similar as possible to the audience you are preparing for. Also, on the day, you need to look out for feedback from the people in the room. Even if it's not feedback they intend to give, they will yawn or look off in other directions, including at their phones or out the window, if they are bored or not listening. Of course, there are lots of signals your audience can give you, from body language to facial expressions. One of the most important ones in my experience is the frown, which means either they don't understand what you're saying, don't agree, or both. Okay, that's it for our introduction. To really understand how this works, though, you now need to go and read Chapter 5 of Explaining the Future. You should be able to get an electronic copy from the library. If you can't access one, you can get it directly from Oxford University Press as an e-book. Use the promo code to get 30% off.